On this video, I would like to continue what I started in John 1, looking at the prologue of John 1, but now moving to part 2. We did verses 1 to 5 yesterday, and now I'm moving on in 1:6 and following. So far, John is talking about the Word, which is Christ, who is eternal, was eternal. In the beginning was the Word. He was always face to face with God, and the Word was God, and he was always divine. All things came to be through him. He is the divine source of creation, and furthermore, in him is life, and that life is the light for mankind. And that light or truth, I think light here means truth for mankind, that John is saying, that light keeps on shining in the darkness, and the darkness was not able to put it out. Actually, the Greek kateleven can mean the darkness could not understand it nor extinguish it or overcome it. So we move on now to verses 6 and following. And it reads, "And there was a man sent from God, his name was John." Notice there is a contrast here in a couple things with verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and all things came to be by him. So he's greater than everything. He's eternal. Everything else had a beginning. But secondly, he was always face to face with God. But John wants us to know that John was a man sent from God, and he had a beginning point. And he was never face to face eternally with God like Jesus. So John is driving that home by the use of the Greek tenses here, the imperfect in verse 1 and the aorist middle in verse 3, as well as verse 4, where creation had a beginning and John had a beginning, and John came from God but never eternally face to face with God. And even creation had a beginning where Jesus was eternal. So by these two tenses, John is driving home that point, I believe. So we continue. This one came for a witness that he might testify concerning the light, that all might believe through him. That is, John came for a witness that he might testify concerning Christ, concerning the light, with the goal and the result that all might believe through him. It doesn't mean that all will believe, but that was John's goal, that people would believe through him and enter into a relationship with God through what Christ accomplishes. It says that one was not the light. In other words, John was not the light, but he came that he might bear witness concerning the light. So we have a difference here, and that is that John, his whole purpose was to simply bear witness concerning the light. He was not the light, but he came only to bear witness concerning the light. And that really is our purpose. As teachers, as ministers, we're simply here to bear witness concerning the light. And that is something that we're privileged to be able to do. And that light, of course, is Christ. But then it goes on in verse 9. He was the genuine light, which enlightens every man coming into the world. In other words, Christ was that true and genuine light, which is causing every man coming into the world to be enlightened. I think the thought here is that he was the genuine light coming into the world, which enlightens every man. I don't think it means every man is converted or saved, but that he's the light that is, by his coming into the world, shows where the truth is. It's also interesting that some want to connect verse 9 he was the genuine light which is enlightening every man coming into the world, that this refers to every man coming into the world. And actually, the participle ergomenon can go either way. It can either refer to Christ as the genuine light, it's a neuter, and the participle could be that, a nominative accusative neuter, or it could simply be not a nominative, it could be a participle, accusative neuter, or it could refer to 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 Christ. In other words, he was the genuine light which is enlightening every man. That would be taking phos, which is neuter, and seeing that as Christ comes into the world, he's providing for every man where the truth is. Every man meaning every human. The other way of rendering it is he was the genuine light which is enlightening every man coming into the world. So that every person coming into the world is enlightened as to where the truth is. That would almost be like the Lord has given everyone the opportunity that comes into the world to be enlightened as to Christ, the Word, as the truth. I guess I tend to go back and take it as, and it could go that way because ergomenon is a present participle middle, accusative singular, which could refer to every man, or it could go back to the genuine light. And I guess I take it probably to be he was the genuine light, which that light which is enlightening every man, which is Christ, as one comes into the world, as to where the truth is. At any rate, he is that light, and he is giving light to everyone as to where the truth is. My take on it. He was in the world, and the world through him came to be, and the world knew him not. He was in the world because of the incarnation, John is going to say, and is saying, and the whole world came to be through him. The whole world had its beginning, and he is the agent of everything, but the world knew him not. I take the last phrase to refer to the unbelieving world, uh, did not know him. And know meaning not that they people didn't have an intellectual knowledge, but the verb here, I think, is looking at an intimate relationship. In other words, the world did not have an intimate relationship with him. He came into his own things, and his very own received him not. He came unto his own things, meaning his own creation of what he has created, but his very own. And we have a change here from the neuter, ta idia, to hoi idioi. That is, he came into his own things, but his very own did not receive him. And most understand this to refer to the Jewish nation at that time, or the religious leaders who were Jewish, and Jesus was Jewish, and John is Jewish as he's writing. And so he's saying he came and do his own thing, but his very own people at that time did not receive him. But as many as received him, whether Jew or Gentile, as many as received him and put their faith in him, he gave to them authority to become children of God. In other words, to become God's children. In a sense, all creation is God's children, but he's looking at a spiritual relationship that is, can I say, unique in that one can only come into that relationship by believing in his name. So he goes on, and by a new birth. As many as received him, he gave to them authority to become the children of God, to those who believe into his name, or in his name. In other words, the authority to become God's spiritual children, and not just humanity in general, which is his offspring, but spiritual children in a unique sense come to those who believe in his name and trust what that name means, which is Jesus, meaning Savior, who are not out of blood, nor out of the will of the flesh, nor out of the will of a man, but have been begotten out of God. And John wants to define how we have the authority to become spiritual children in the sense of a new relationship with Christ, and that comes a unique relationship, and that comes not out of bloodline, not out of the will of the flesh, not of the one wanting it by works, I'm taking it, nor out of the will of a man, that is, not out of human birth. The will of a man, he uses male here, to have a child, not that, but who have been born out of God. And he's introducing the idea of a spiritual birth. That is, it's through a new birth that one enters in to this authority to be a spiritual children of God. And that is what John is saying. And my understanding that what Christ has accomplished through his death and glorious coming into this world and resurrection, by believing and receiving him, one has the authority to become God's spiritual children and beloved of God in a very unique sense of having that authority that comes through faith in Jesus Christ. So I'm reminded of the song, I don't remember sometimes all the words, Joy to the World, the Lord has come. And we think of the angel's song, and he's brought reconciliation to all by his coming. And so may we sing that praise here of John 1 and simply say, Joy to the world, the Lord has come. What a beautiful message John is giving us.